can kingfish be caught land-based on the South Island consistently, or is it rare? I wouldn't have said consistently, but there's definitely the chance to catch them down here in the South Island. Yeah, all year round probably not, but in those spring and summer months it's definitely an easier task. Areas like French Pass or some points in the Marlborough Sounds which you can access from the land, they're going to give you your best chances again in those spring and summer months. Yeah, casting the likes of your stick baits, or you know, swimming live baits under balloons. If you pump a good burley trail, get a few bait fish around, you're definitely in with a shot. So worth having a crack, mate. But yeah, when it comes to consistently all year round, I'd probably stick to your spring and summer months there. Yeah, go find something else to do in the other months. What is your best advice to a novice trying to fish the canals for the first time? Right, so canal fishing, you know, down in the Twizel and Tekapo areas down south, there's some pretty wicked fishing down there, eh? So it's a pretty unique fishery. There's not many other places like that in the world. So when you go down there, you're best off going down there with a pretty good bit of advice. If you can, I'd catch up or you know, book a trip with someone like Ben Booth from Boothie's Fishing School. He's going to give you the tips you need and the advice to sort of better your fishing and you know, progress, catch more fish in the future. If you go down there, you know, blind or without any idea, it can be tough. I've heard of guys going down there 4 or 5 trips and not catching a fish. So definitely, if you can, get a bit of advice from some of those gurus down there if you can first. And the other thing would be, you know, good quality gear. You do really want to take freshwater or canal specific gear down there with you. It does make a lot of difference. So if you're taking your average Joe boat rod down there and hoping to do really well, you probably won't. So there's plenty of different price points when it comes to combos. Again, it's the same with any sort of fishing gear really. Buy the best you can afford. Diver's got a huge range. Their Diver, this is the Gekabajin rod. It's a bit of a mouthful, but this is an 8'6" rod. High carbon content, super sensitive, casts lightweight really well, and it gives you the ability to feel bites and the bottom when you're drifting eggs in the canals really well. So really essential bit of kit is the rod. So that's my recommendation for a rod for fishing the canals anyway. But pair it with a nice small reel. You're fishing light line. This is 6 pound braid on here, and again 6 pound leader. So people fish even lighter, you can fish heavier. That all depends on, you know, how much flow they've got down there at the time, how dirty the water is. You know, if you're fishing under those cages, you quite often will beef up your gear because they can get you snagged up on stuff pretty quick. Good light drag. You really need smooth drag when it comes to fishing those big trout. Because you're fishing such light line, you need a smooth drag release. You know, and you see the drag's not notching all the time. That's when you break fish off. So good smooth drag. You don't need much line capacity. I think I've got about 150 meters of braid on here. But yeah, a nicely weighted reel to go with your rod. This is the Daiwa Revelry, the shallow spool version. So this is a nice finesse sort of reel, 5 kilos of drag, but super smooth. And yeah, that does the job perfectly. Besides the pellets in the canals, why do the trout grow so huge? It's a bit of a funny one. There's a lot of theories there around why they grow so big down there. Definitely the environments must have a big impact on that. It's such an ideal environment for, you know, big trout to live in. You've got a nice deep canal, plenty of variety, but you know, those salmon cages that are in the canals with pellets coming out of them, that's a huge high protein food source. That's got to be the #1 reason why those trout get big in there. There is other food sources in there, you know, small trout, freshwater snails, that style of thing. But yeah, for me, I think the two major things would be the habitat, the environment they're living in there, and the food source, those pellets coming in the canals, they do make them grow pretty bloody big. Best advice for soft baiting in the shallows. Alright, so that's definitely not something we do much of here in the South Island, but it can be bloody good. So when it comes to fishing soft baits, shallows wise around the Marlborough Sounds, for instance, there's a lot of species like cod, spotties, pest fish like that, that can tear your soft baits to pieces. We don't generally get the snapper in the super shallow stuff like they do up north, around the wash and that style of things. But Tasman Bay, for instance, over the sand, we do get the snapper in shallow, and people do soft bait for them, but just not much down here. So it's something that can be done, and probably needs more time spent on it. Plenty of different style soft baits out there. There are a couple of divers bait junkies. For me, the most fish I've caught soft baiting, especially in Tasman Bay, has been on the smaller sizes, the 5-inch. So they represent probably the bait fish we've got in the bay here a little bit better. Again, we're not casting around the wash, we're fishing over patches of sand and mud. So if it was me, I'd be giving these a flick, working them back along the bottom. You'll pick up your usuals, gurnard, snapper, and again, you get around rocks, you'll start catching cod, and all the rest of it on those too. So worth a crack, mate. But we definitely don't have the same style of fishing as they do up north around the wash. But yeah, fishing in amongst the summer months over the sand in the bay, definitely worth a crack. Even if you've got a burley trail out the back of the boat while you're bait fishing, have a flick of soft bait out there and see how you go. Any tips for fishing D'Urville Island? Well, where do you start? There's so much to learn and do up there. Forever learning. Every trip you go up there's something new to go and try. So tips wise, without giving away spots or anything like that, the best thing you can do is spend your time researching the area. Look on charts, use apps like Navionics. Find areas that you want to target fish, like Kingfish, for instance. You're looking for structure, current, bait fish. Those three things together are going to help you find the fish you want to catch. So Stevens Island is always the name thrown around. What the best jigging setup is. A lot of that comes down to personal preference. You've got two different options when it comes to jigging setups. You can fish either like a spin style reel, like this Certate, or overheads. So your overhead reels, for me, I prefer when it comes to jigging for kingfish, just because you've got more feel when you're dropping the line down. You've got your lines under your thumb when you're dropping your jig. I get better feel that way. I can work the jigs better that way too. So for me, I personally prefer the overhead style setups. A lot of guys do run these spin style setups because you can transfer them across to a top water rod too, and you kind of get the best of both worlds there. If you're going to have a specific jigging setup, yeah, like I said, I prefer the overheads. Plenty of options out there on the market. I use a PE 3 to 6 style setup, so I'm fishing sort of 70 to 80 pound braid with a good compact but grunty overhead reel. Daiwa does a really good one, which is the Saltiga 35, the JP model, so that's their specific jigging overhead reel they do. So nice compact, skinny size, can fit more than enough line on there, but it's got the long throw handle for working the jigs. Pair that with a good sort of parabolic rod. I don't like a rod that's too stiff, just for the fact that it's more tiring on the angler. It's easier to work a jig for me with a slightly more parabolic rod. The PE 3 to 6 bracket sort of fits that nicely when you're fishing sort of 300, 200 gram jigs. The Daiwa Spartan, they do a really nice range of jigging rods, good affordable price. Other models to look for when it comes to spin, if you're looking for a more affordable combo, the Daiwa Saltist is a great option. From there they do the Surte, the new Maverick model, which they've just released. So, plenty of options out there on the market. If you're trying to fit a budget, we've had another question on there. Best jigging combo for under $1,000. Again, plenty of options. The Saltist is a good all-round reel. So have a look on the Daiwa website. There's plenty of different specs on there, so you can have a look through. If you come across my Instagram page, feel free to ask me a question on there too, and I'll be more than happy to help. In your opinion, what is the best time of year to catch kingfish in the South Island? For me, my favourite time of year is winter. That's when we get the bigger kingfish showing up in the top of the south. So places like Stevens Island, areas like that, the kingfish up there is super fat in winter. They're all fed up, so that's generally where we catch the bigger kingfish. But there's heaps of other options. I chase them on the flats in Tasman Bay or Golden Bay. That's a pretty cool way of catching them too. Smaller fish, but you're sight casting for them in sort of knee-deep water on light tackle or on the fly rod. So that's a good way, exciting way to catch kingfish too. Not as big, but just as fun at the end of the day. But yeah, my favourite time of year, mate, would be spring or probably middle of winter. Recommendations for fishing the South Island for the first time. I guess it all depends on what sort of fishing you want to do there really. If you're freshwater fishing, there's plenty of different rivers, lakes, the canals. Best way to catch fish successfully, or the easiest way, is probably fishing soft baits. So using small soft baits, 2.5 inch. Daiwa do a really good one, a Bait Junkie 2.5 inch minnow. Casting those around the edges of lakes or through deep pools and rivers. That can be a really good way of catching trout. There's good salmon fishing at certain times of year in the river mouths, but again, that's a seasonal thing. You're probably best off trying to catch those trout. Lakes, rivers, the canals is a great one to go and have a crack at catching fish. I've touched on that already. Fishing with the likes of Boothie down south or that style of thing. That's another good one for freshwater. Saltwater, if you haven't got a boat and you're just fishing from the shore, there's some great surf casting options on either the east or west coast. So fishing for things like rig or elephant fish. A lot of guys do that sort of further south. Both great eating fish. They fight hard. People turn their nose up at rig and that sort of thing because they are a shark, but man, they're bloody good eating when they're prepared right, so that's well worth the crack too. If you've got a boat, that's awesome. If you can get up to Tasman Bay, that sort of area, the height of summer, there's a great chance of you catching some snapper up here. If you head out in the bay, sort of the 15 to 20 metre depth, pump a good burley trail, you probably catch some snapper, so that's a great option for you too. But there's a few things to go and have a crack at there.